There's a moment you can feel but never see. It's quiet, fleeting, almost invisible, yet it decides everything. A single second when someone challenges you, questions your intentions, or accuses you of being arrogant, selfish, or manipulative. Most people panic in that moment. They defend themselves. They justify. They explain. No, that's not what I meant. You misunderstood me. And in that instant, they've already lost, because here's the truth no one wants to admit. Defense is weakness. Explaining yourself doesn't prove innocence. It proves that someone else has the power to make you feel guilty. It hands them the narrative, the control, and the subtle authority to define who you are before you even open your mouth. And the world? The world watches. It notices every flinch, every tremor in your voice, every rushed explanation. That's how power slips through the fingers of the unprepared. But some people, the rare few, understand something most will never see. They know that words are not weapons. Presence is. Silence is not absence. It is dominance. The second you stop defending yourself, the second you refuse to justify, something strange happens. The accuser begins to shift. They fidget. They question themselves. Their confidence falters while yours grows, and invisibly, relentlessly, inexorably, what was meant to weaken you becomes the very tool that elevates you. Imagine standing in a room where someone tries to provoke you. Maybe it's a subtle jab, maybe a direct attack. Most people leap at the opportunity to clarify, to explain, to win. But the one who controls the room does something far colder. They pause. They stare. They let the accusation hang in the air like a shadow, untouched, unanswered. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the attacker begins to collapse under their own weight. Their insecurity spills out, their confidence erodes, and everyone watching sees it. The tables have turned. The power has shifted. This isn't about being nice. This isn't about being fair. This is about psychological mastery, control of perception, and the invisible art of dominance. There is a law here, ancient and unforgiving. Explain, and you lose. Stay silent, and the world begins to explain you. And in that space, in that silence, in that cold, unyielding calm, that's where the untouchable is born. Do you want to know how to never be cornered, never be questioned, and never be dominated again? This is your first step. The rules you've been taught about defense, fairness, and explanation, forget them. Because in the game of real power, silence is the ultimate weapon, and you're about to learn how to wield it. The trap of defending yourself. There's a moment when someone questions you, a slight jab at your character, your choices, or your intentions. Most people feel the urgent need to respond, to defend themselves. I didn't mean it like that. You've misunderstood me. I swear I'm not like that. And in that split second, without even realizing it, they fall into a trap. This is the trap of defending yourself. The average person thinks they're proving themselves. The truth, they're losing control. Defending yourself is like handing the enemy a loaded weapon while saying, "Go ahead, aim." When you justify, you acknowledge the authority of the one attacking you. You admit silently that their opinion matters, that they have power over your reputation, your narrative, your perception. And power, as Machiavelli understood centuries ago, is never about truth. It's about perception. If the world sees you flinch, if they hear you stumble over explanations, they don't see fairness. They see weakness. And once weakness is perceived, you are no longer untouchable. Here's the subtle danger. Defending yourself feels right. It feels noble. You think, I'm clarifying, I'm being fair. But the human mind is wired to crave emotional satisfaction. People defend to be understood. They defend to relieve guilt. They defend to appease their own insecurities. None of these bring control. None of these elevate status. Instead, each word you use in defense is a chain you willingly wrap around your power. The more you explain, the more vulnerable you appear. Every explanation is a window into fear, hesitation, and doubt. And the attacker? They don't need to act anymore. You've already handed them the victory. The real mastery lies in refusing the trap entirely. The first time someone calls you out, imagine standing still. Your face unreadable, your posture relaxed but composed. No words escape. The accusation floats in the air, untethered, unanswered, and the mind of your accuser, expecting panic, explanation, justification, begins to unravel. They start second-guessing themselves. Did I overreact? Did I push too far? The moment you refuse to defend, the power shifts. What was meant to weaken you becomes their weakness. The crowd, if there is one, notices. Your calmness becomes the mirror in which everyone else's insecurity is reflected. Defending yourself is the easy, emotional reaction. Standing silent is the strategy, the weapon of perception, and the tool of untouchable influence. The moment you step out of the trap, you force others to explain themselves. You shift the battlefield. And here's the cruel, elegant irony. The stronger you are, the less you defend. Every accusation, every jab becomes fuel for their own collapse. The trap exists only if you step inside. Avoid it and you create a psychological fortress no one can breach. In the end, defending yourself is not just useless, it's dangerous. It confirms weakness, it hands control to others, and it blinds you to the most powerful move of all. Doing nothing and letting the world fill in the blanks, often overestimating your strength, fearing your calm, and underestimating their own position. Master this first trap and you've already stepped into the realm of untouchable strategy. Silence as a weapon. Silence is not empty. Silence is not absence. Silence is a weapon sharper than any sword, louder than any shout. Most people panic when confronted. They fill the air with words, explanations, justifications. They think speaking is power. They are wrong. True power lies in the pause, in the stillness, in the control of the air around you. The second someone attacks you, subtly or blatantly, your words are not what matter. Your reaction is. And if you choose silence, you turn the tables before the battle even begins. Imagine it. Someone calls you arrogant, manipulative, cold, or selfish. Most people stumble immediately, defending themselves. But the master, the Machiavellian, says nothing. Not because they are weak, not because they are unsure, but because they understand the force of silence. In that stillness, something incredible happens. The attacker starts talking more, trying to explain their point, overcompensating for the lack of reaction. They are now caught in a psychological trap of their own making. Your silence forces them to reveal their own instability. Every word they utter becomes a thread in the web of their vulnerability. Silence commands attention. It forces the observer to wonder, to question, to project meaning onto your lack of reaction. People instinctively fill voids, and when you leave one in the room, they overthink. Why didn't he respond? Does he know something I don't? Is he above this? Each silent second amplifies the uncertainty in others' minds while reinforcing your composure. You are no longer the accused. You are the observer. You are untouchable, because the power of the room has subtly shifted toward you. Here's the genius of silence. It is invisible but undeniable. Unlike words, it cannot be contradicted, misquoted, or weaponized against you. Unlike explanations, it does not give away strategy, intentions, or vulnerabilities. It is the ultimate armor. Every person who attempts to provoke you becomes their own executioner, overplaying their hand while you remain stoic. Silence is psychological leverage. Every second you remain calm, the attacker loses more of their perceived control. And the audience, whether a room full of people, a digital crowd, or even just one observer, takes note. They respect not what you say, but what you refuse to say. But silence is not passive. It is active, deliberate, tactical. It is a mirror, a reflection of the emotional chaos of others. It is a trap set without bait. And in every interaction, public, professional, personal, or online, those who master this skill are untouchable. The moment you speak, you give away part of your strength. The moment you justify, you admit weakness. The moment you flinch, you lose control. Silence transforms the battlefield into your domain, where you define the rules, set the tempo, and force others to react to you, rather than the other way around. In short, words convince, but silence dominates. Words explain, silence commands. Words may sway minds, but silence shapes perception. It is the weapon of kings, generals, and strategists. And when wielded correctly, it dismantles attacks before they land. If you understand this one principle, the terrifying, subtle, invisible power of silence, you have taken the first step into untouchable influence. The world reacts to silence more than it reacts to arguments. The mind seeks meaning in absence. The battlefield shifts before it even begins. Silence is not just golden. Silence is dominion. Perception over reality. Reality is a fragile concept. People believe they are seeing the truth, but the truth is rarely what they perceive. In the world of power, influence, and manipulation, reality is irrelevant. Perception is everything. The moment someone thinks they know you, they believe they understand your motives, your strength, your weaknesses, They believe they can control you. And that belief, false or not, defines their actions, their fear, their respect, or their contempt. You do not fight reality, you fight perception. And whoever controls perception controls the world around them. Think about this. A person spreads a rumor, a subtle accusation, a whispered doubt. Reality may be one thing, harmless, meaningless, or entirely fabricated, but the perception it creates is another. Most people panic, scrambling to prove reality, to defend themselves, to explain every nuance, to set the record straight. That is weakness. That is the trap. Because when you step into the battlefield of reality, you are fighting someone else's war. You are accepting their narrative. You are giving them authority over your image. And in power dynamics, giving authority is losing. The master, the Machiavellian, sees this instantly. They understand that reality is fluid, but perception is solidified in the minds of others. The goal is not to be understood. The goal is to be feared, respected, or untouchable. Perception shapes every interaction, in a room, at a meeting, online, in relationships. People do not react to facts. They react to the story they believe. They react to the aura you project, the confidence you display, the calculated control of your words, gestures, and silence. Every glance, every pause, every calm inhale is a subtle signal. It tells the observer something more powerful than words. I am not yours to define. Here's the secret. The stronger your perception, the weaker reality becomes. If people think you are strategic, dominant, untouchable, manipulative, or above the petty chaos around them, they will act according to that belief, whether or not it reflects reality. They will hesitate, second-guess themselves, and overcompensate. They will fear you, admire you, or even defend you, all because of the perception you carefully cultivate. Reality cannot compete with a narrative your audience has already accepted. Now let's take it deeper. In social settings, the crowd does not observe the facts. They observe reactions, a subtle jab, a criticism, or a question, and their eyes shift to you. If you flinch, if you stumble, if you justify, you reinforce their perception of weakness. But if you remain composed, if your calm presence dominates the scene, you rewrite reality. They see control, poise, mastery. They may not know why, but they sense it. And perception solidifies. You are strong, untouchable, calculated. You are more than what you do. You are the idea of power itself. Perception over reality is also the ultimate armor in public and digital spaces. Comments, accusations, or manipulations online rarely affect the one who controls their own perception. The audience sees the projected narrative, your calmness, your confidence, your refusal to react immediately. These speak louder than the truth ever could. You no longer respond to attacks. The attacks respond to you. The narrative bends, twists, and reshapes itself around your perception. In essence, perception is your dominion. Reality is a footnote. Facts may exist, but perception rules. The one who manipulates perception controls behavior, influence, and outcomes. You do not need to justify your actions. You need to shape how they are understood. Every interaction becomes a stage, and your perception is the performance no one can ignore. Master perception, and the world bends to the story you craft. Inverting accusations. Imagine someone throws a jab at you. A subtle comment, a public dig, an accusation meant to undermine, shame, or provoke. Most people react instinctively. They defend themselves. They justify. They explain. And in that very moment, they lose. Because the first person who speaks in defense has already admitted weakness. They accepted the frame, they played on the field, and now the power belongs to the accuser. But what if, instead of reacting, you could flip the game entirely? That's the art of inverting accusations. Inversion is subtle. It's surgical. You take the energy of the attack and the words, the judgment, the emotional weight, and you redirect it. Not defensively, not angrily, but strategically. The goal is not to explain yourself. The goal is to make the attacker question themselves, to make them defensive, to turn their energy against them without lifting a finger. This is psychological judo, using the force of someone else to unbalance them, while you remain calm, composed, untouchable. Here's how it works. Someone calls you manipulative. The average response, "No, I'm not, that's not true." Weak. They see you flinch, they see you care, you've handed them the victory. The inverted response, a calm, neutral, almost indifferent. Interesting that you see it that way. Nothing else. No explanation, no apology, no denial. Just a mirror. And now the accuser is forced to reflect. They begin to doubt. Did I overstep? Did I sound too harsh? Why aren't they reacting? Slowly the power shifts. You don't prove anything. They prove their own instability. The beauty of inversion lies in perception. People want conflict. They crave reactions. They want to see you squirm. When you refuse to provide it, when you redirect instead of defending, you become the unpredictable variable. They become obsessed with you. They try harder, escalate further, reveal more of their insecurity, and every word they speak, every move they make, reinforces your strength. You are calm. You are controlled. They are exposed. Inverting accusations also reshapes the narrative publicly. In social, professional, and digital spaces, people watch reactions more than facts. A deft inversion turns their attack into a performance of their own weakness. A crowd watching will perceive strength, composure, and mastery in you, even if they never knew the reality of the situation. You don't fight the words. You fight the perception. And by inverting, you dictate the frame, forcing them into your psychological arena. This is not manipulation for the sake of cruelty. It is strategy. It is dominance without confrontation. The Machiavellian principle is clear. Defend and you lose. Redirect and you win. Turn their accusations into a reflection of their own flaws, their own emotional volatility, their own obsession. Make them the narrative. Make them the performance. Make them the one under scrutiny. And in the silence, in the subtle smile, in the calm neutrality, you rise. The ultimate lesson: every accusation thrown at you is an opportunity, not to defend, not to clarify, not to justify, but to invert, redirect, and elevate. Use their aggression as a mirror. Let it reveal their instability and step back into composure. In this game, you never fight for your image, you craft it. You become untouchable, mysterious, and feared, not by violence, not by argument, but by mastery over perception itself. Social and public dynamics. Every action you take, every word you speak is observed, not just by the person you're interacting with, but by an invisible audience. Humans are social creatures, and social perception is a battlefield. In public spaces, meetings, social gatherings, or even online platforms, it's not only about what is said, it's about who controls the narrative. The crowd sees far more than the individuals involved. They notice tension, hesitation, dominance, composure. They sense power and weakness through subtle cues. And in these dynamics, perception outweighs reality every single time. Think about it. Someone tries to throw shade at you in a meeting. Perhaps a sly comment about your abilities, your past mistakes, or your ideas.
The average person reacts immediately.
They defend. They over-explain. They justify. But in doing so, they reveal anxiety, concern, and vulnerability. The crowd notices this. Even if your defense is logically perfect, emotionally, it's a surrender. You just confirmed the frame, that the comment had weight, that it mattered enough to respond to. And suddenly the person attacking is not only emboldened but elevated in the eyes of the observers. Now imagine a different approach. Silence, controlled breathing, a slight knowing smile, a calm gaze that doesn't flinch. The attack hangs in the air, but you remain unshaken. You don't clarify. You don't justify. The crowd begins to process what they see. The person who launched the attack is tense, desperate, emotional. You calm, untouchable. Suddenly, the social energy shifts. You haven't said a word, but your control is obvious. The room is subtly rewired to see the attacker as unstable, reactive, and weak, while you radiate confidence and authority. Social dynamics amplify every micro-movement. Every gesture, every pause, every glance communicates more than words ever could. If you move too quickly to respond, you reveal urgency, emotion, and engagement with the accusation. Exactly what you want to avoid. If you stand still, if your silence is deliberate, the social crowd begins to compensate for your lack of reaction. They begin to interpret your inaction as a signal of power, mastery, and higher status. Suddenly, the narrative is no longer about what was said. It is about your presence, your control, your dominance over the space. The same applies to digital dynamics. Comments, tweets, posts, and public calls out are watched by thousands of unseen eyes. Your reaction is scrutinized. Every over-explanation, every defensive post reinforces the attacker's narrative. But strategic stillness, brief, calculated responses, or even subtle inversions of the accusation shift perception. The audience begins to align with you, consciously or unconsciously. You dictate the tempo. You dictate the framing. You dictate the social hierarchy in that moment. Mastering social and public dynamics is about invisibly controlling the battlefield. The less you react, the more they reveal. The less you defend, the more others compensate on your behalf. The more you command presence, the more the crowd enforces your dominance. It's a subtle psychological warfare where silence, stillness, and calculated actions speak louder than words. And once you understand this, you can move through any social arena, corporate, personal or digital, untouchable, unshakable, and elevated above the noise. Social mastery is power disguised as composure. It is the art of letting others expose themselves while you remain a quiet force. The crowd always notices, and when the audience notices, the world bends, subtly but irrevocably in your favor. Short, precise responses, status assertions. Words are weapons, but most people misuse them. They over-explain, over-justify, and overcompensate. Every sentence they speak is a concession, a subtle admission that someone else's perception has power over them. The Machiavellian principle is simple. The fewer words you use, the more weight each word carries. Precision is dominance, brevity is control. Every long explanation is a bridge you build to your attacker's narrative. Every short, sharp phrase is a trap they fall into. Imagine someone calls you arrogant, manipulative, or overconfident. The natural reaction is to defend, explain, or rationalize. But every explanation signals emotional engagement. And in the eyes of observers, engagement equals vulnerability. Here's the Machiavellian alternative. Short, precise statements that assert your status without apology. Confidence upsets the insecure. I don't owe you authenticity. I don't think like everyone. 3, 4, 5 words, maximum. No justification, no anger, no defensiveness. Every word is a statement of control. Every silence after the phrase becomes a magnifying glass that forces them to confront their own weakness. Precision creates a rhythm. It's like psychological judo. You don't meet their force with resistance. You redirect it. Short, status-asserting responses force your attacker to overextend. They scramble. They try to explain, to push back, to reclaim control, and in doing so, they expose their instability. The crowd observes. The observer's attention shifts from your alleged flaw to their flailing reaction. You don't need to win the argument. You need to dominate the perception. Short responses achieve this by leaving nothing for them to exploit. You are a fixed point. They are the variable spinning around you. The power of status assertions extends beyond confrontation. It signals that your attention is scarce, your energy is valuable, and your presence carries authority. In social, professional, and digital arenas, people constantly test boundaries, poke, and bait. Long responses suggest that your time and mental energy are disposable. Short, precise responses communicate scarcity. That engaging with you is a privilege, not a right. It elevates your social status invisibly. You're not simply reacting. You are dictating the tempo of the interaction, controlling the frame, and forcing others to operate within your parameters. Every world-class negotiator, elite leader, or influencer understands this principle intuitively. They don't explain. They assert. They do not apologize. They do not clarify. Their words are instruments, not explanations. Each phrase is calibrated to achieve maximum impact with minimal energy, and the psychological effect is undeniable. The audience instinctively respects, fears, or admires brevity because it communicates mastery. The crowd always senses power when someone doesn't need to speak much, but when they do, it lands like a hammer. Short, precise responses aren't just defense mechanisms. They are offensive tools. Each phrase is a move, each silence a weapon. Mastering this technique transforms social interactions from chaotic battles into controlled fields of influence. You are no longer trapped by their narrative. You are the one who shapes it. And once you master the art of status assertions, the world begins to bend quietly, invisibly toward you. Stillness and body language. Words are only part of the battlefield. Silence and motionless presence speak louder than any speech ever could. Body language is the invisible currency of power, and stillness is its most lethal denomination. In a room filled with tension, attacks, or subtle jabs, your posture, gaze, and movements determine the story everyone tells themselves about you. Most people flinch, twitch, or react without realizing the signals they're sending. The Machiavellian operator understands this. Your body can fight for you when your words would only betray weakness. Imagine someone hurls an insult, subtle or sharp, in a boardroom, a party, or online. The natural response is movement, a shift in posture, a nervous gesture, a smile, or a verbal defense. Every motion betrays an internal reaction, no matter how small. The crowd notices. Their subconscious sees vulnerability before your mind registers it. But stillness? Stillness is power incarnate. It is the calm eye in a storm, the mountain that does not bow, the unshakable presence that forces others to negotiate with your aura rather than your arguments. A Machiavellian master never flinches, never tenses, never gives away the drama hidden inside. Stillness transforms perception. When someone attacks and you hold your gaze, keep your chest open, shoulders relaxed and hands composed, the room unconsciously assigns authority to you. They wonder, why is he unmoved? What does he know that we don't? The answer doesn't matter. What matters is the assumption, and assumptions shape reality. Every flicker of impatience, anxiety, or discomfort is a crack in your armor. Every controlled gesture, every deliberate breath, every calm blink communicates dominance. You become untouchable not because of what you say, but because of the energy you radiate without a word. Stillness combined with subtle cues magnifies control. A slight tilt of the head, a raised eyebrow, or a measured nod can punctuate your unspoken authority. The attacker, expecting reaction, now faces a mirror. Their aggression, their intent, and their instability reflected back at them. They overcompensate. They scramble. They try harder. And in doing so, they reveal their weakness, all while you remain a calm, immovable anchor in the room. People unconsciously compare themselves to you, their actions judged against your unflinching presence. You define the tempo, the emotional climate, and the invisible hierarchy. Body language is silent strategy. Your stance, your gait, the way you occupy space, which all are signals of status. A Machiavellian operator never crowds, never gestures wildly, never over-explains with hands. They are deliberate. They are intentional. The room feels this. Your presence commands attention because it signals that your energy is finite and precious. Even in silence, your stillness communicates a story of control, superiority, and untouchability. Stillness is a weapon of patience, a tool of misdirection, and a framework of power. It forces others to project, to speculate, and often to falter. Your body doesn't just exist in a room, it defines the room. And the people around you? They dance to your rhythm, consciously or not. Master this and you no longer respond to attacks. You preempt them, controlling not just what is said but how it is perceived. In the art of power, stillness isn't passivity. It is dominance executed without a single word. Ultimate goal, definition, not defense. Most people live their lives defending themselves. Every insult, every accusation, every doubt becomes a battlefield they feel forced to fight. They rush to explain, clarify, justify, but every word they speak confirms that someone else has the power to define them. This is the trap. The moment you defend yourself, you hand over control of your narrative, your reputation, and your image to someone else. The Machiavellian operator sees beyond this trap. He understands that the ultimate goal is not to defend, but to define. The difference is subtle but seismic. Defense reacts to others. Definition forces the world to react to you. Defining yourself is a declaration of sovereignty. It says, I will not allow your perception to dictate my reality. My existence, my choices, my identity are mine alone. When someone attacks you, your power lies not in disproving their words, but in showing that their words hold no weight. You do not fight the narrative. You create a new one. You speak only when your voice shifts power, and when you do, it is measured, deliberate, and status-affirming. Every pause, every carefully chosen phrase, every controlled inflection signals authority. You are no longer a participant in someone else's game. You are the game itself. Think of the difference between a man who defends himself and one who defines himself. The defender is trapped in a reactive loop. Their energy, focus, and time are consumed by others' accusations. They chase approval, validation, and understanding, all illusions of control. The man who defines himself moves in an entirely different plane. His reputation is not built on what people believe he is, but on what they fear he might do next. He does not explain. He asserts. He does not justify. He commands. And through this, his presence becomes a narrative, his silence a story, and his every move a calculated expression of power. Defining yourself also rewires social perception. People are naturally drawn to clarity, certainty, and authority. When you stop defending yourself, the crowd starts filling in the blanks. They speculate, interpret, and often overestimate you. Mystery becomes your ally. People assume strength where none is claimed, respect where none is begged for, and fear where none is provoked. Every reaction, every overexerted defense from others only amplifies your dominance. You don't need to fight their battles. You let their energy destroy them while you remain untouched. The Machiavellian ideal goes further. You control your definition before others can. Reputation is not about popularity. It is about perceived power. You cannot force people to like you, and trying to prove your goodness is a trap. But you can ensure that no one moves against you lightly. You shape your image with silence, precision, and calculated presence. Your actions, your posture, and your voice define the standard. Defense is reactive. Definition is proactive. Defense hands over control. Definition seizes it. And mastery lies in the patience to wait, the clarity to act only when necessary, and the courage to let others stumble while you remain composed. In the end, defending yourself is weak because it signals need. Defining yourself is strong because it signals sovereignty. It says to the world, I am not your argument, your judgment, or your validation. I am my own standard, my own measure, my own power. And when you achieve that, defense becomes irrelevant, criticism becomes impotent, and you become untouchable, not because you proved anything, but because you defined everything. Power is not given, it is claimed. And the moment you stop defending yourself, you step into a space most people will never even recognize exists. You become untouchable, not because you fought harder, not because you explained more, but because you refused to play by their rules. Every accusation that once threatened you now floats harmlessly past, because your silence, your stillness, your presence, all of it speaks louder than any words ever could. Think about it. The world is full of people desperate to be understood, desperate to justify themselves, desperate to prove they are right. They exhaust themselves trying to win approval. They collapse under the weight of their own emotions. And you rise. You don't explain. You don't defend. You define. And in that act, the tables turn. The energy that was meant to harm you now works for you. The narrative no longer belongs to them. It belongs to you. Mastering this is not easy. It takes patience, practice, and a willingness to embrace discomfort. But the reward is absolute. A presence so commanding that people cannot help but notice. So composed that chaos has no effect. So calculated that even your silence becomes a weapon. The Machiavellian truth is simple. Control perception, don't chase approval. The world will fill the gaps with fear, respect, and speculation. You don't need to explain who you are. Your existence defines it all, so from this moment forward, make a choice. To react or to define. To defend or to elevate. Every time someone tries to provoke you, remember, defending yourself is surrender. Defining yourself is victory. And once you master this, once you live in this principle, you don't just survive the battlefield of perception, you dominate it. The world doesn't get to judge you. You become the standard. You become untouchable.